Welcome everyone to AA Castor Book Club. Today's story is The Experiment. Prepare yourselves for a chilling and dark journey into the depths of human psychology, where ethics are abandoned in the relentless pursuit of knowledge. Chapter 1: The Setup. In a dystopian world where ethics held no value, a sprawling prison housed 10,000 of the most dangerous men. The government, driven by a relentless thirst for understanding the depths of human psychology, handed control over to a team of unscrupulous scientists. Led by Dr. Marcus, these researchers had free rein to conduct experiments that would be deemed horrific by any humane standard. The prison became a dark laboratory. Men were subjected to endless tests: drugs, pain tolerance, and exposure to deadly viruses. One day, a young researcher named Dr. Emily proposed a new experiment to test the psychological dynamics within the prison. Introducing a beautiful woman. "Do you really think this will yield significant results?" Dr. Marcus asked, leaning back in his chair. Dr. Emily nodded confidently. "Yes, placing a woman in a hypermasculine environment like this will reveal the primal instincts of the inmates. It's the ultimate test of dominance and control." With the government's approval and the promise of substantial funding, the plan was set into motion. Laura, a woman chosen for her beauty and allure, was briefed and placed in the heart of the prison. The prisoners, starved of any female interaction, were instantly captivated. At first, the men attempted to engage with Laura, vying for her attention. Among them, a particularly strong and influential prisoner named Jackson claimed her as his own. His dominance over the other inmates was unchallenged, and Laura, seeing no other choice, submitted to his protection. "Stay close to me and you'll be safe," Jackson assured her, his grip firm on her arm. Laura nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Okay." The scientists watched eagerly, recording every interaction. The atmosphere within the prison grew tense as jealousy and resentment simmered among the inmates. Men who once coexisted uneasily now eyed Jackson with envy and hatred. The stage was set for chaos. Chapter 2: The First Blood. As days passed, Jackson's monopoly over Laura became a source of intense frustration for the other inmates. Men who had been deprived of any semblance of affection for years saw Laura as a beacon of hope, and Jackson's refusal to share her inflamed their already volatile tempers. One day, Marco approached Jackson in the yard. "Come on, man. You can't keep her all to yourself. Share the wealth." Jackson's eyes narrowed. "Back off, Marco. She's mine." The breaking point came when a group of 10 men, led by Marco, decided to take action. Under the cover of night, they crept into Jackson's cell, weapons improvised from everyday items clutched tightly in their hands. Laura, paralyzed with fear, watched from the corner as the men attacked Jackson in his sleep. Jackson's strength was formidable, but the numbers were against him. He fought valiantly, but the ambush was too much. The 10 men overpowered him, their rage culminating in a brutal display of violence. As Jackson lay lifeless, the men turned to Laura, their expressions a mix of triumph and lust. "From now on, we are your husbands," Marco declared, wiping the blood from his hands. Laura, with no other choice, agreed, fearing for her life. "Do you understand?" Marco asked, his voice softer now. Laura nodded, her voice trembling. "Yes, I understand." The men established a system, each taking turns to be with her once a day. The scientists observed, noting the shifting power dynamics and the escalating tension. Chapter 3: The Cycle of Violence. The fragile peace that followed Jackson's death was short-lived. The men who now claimed Laura as their own soon began to squabble over her, each one wanting more time, more attention. Their initial cooperation gave way to suspicion and rivalry. One evening, Marco demanded extra time with Laura. "It's my turn now," he insisted. Another prisoner, Ethan, refused to relinquish his turn, leading to a heated argument. "You had your time, Marco. Get lost." The brawl quickly turned violent. Ethan, enraged and desperate, grabbed a sharp object and plunged it into Marco's chest. Marco's death set off a chain reaction. Friendships shattered, alliances formed and broke, and the body count began to rise. The scientists watched with morbid fascination as the experiment spiraled into chaos. Each death was meticulously recorded, each shift in power dynamics analyzed. Laura became a symbol of unattainable desire, the catalyst for the prisoners' descent into madness. The cycle of violence continued, each man willing to kill for a moment of solace with her. The prison, once a place of rigid order, was now a battleground. Chapter 4: The Last Men Standing. The prison population dwindled as the violence raged on. The once teeming facility now echoed with the silence of death and despair. Among the remaining men, only Victor and Ian emerged as the dominant forces, their rivalry the fiercest of all. Victor, a hulking brute with a ruthless streak, and Ian, a cunning and strategic thinker, found themselves locked in a deadly game of cat and mouse. Each knew that to claim Laura entirely, the other had to die. One fateful night, they faced off in the prison yard. The tension was palpable as the two men circled each other, their intentions clear. "You think you deserve her?" Ian sneered. "She's mine, and I'll kill anyone who stands in my way." Victor's eyes burned with hatred. "Over my dead body," he growled, launching himself at Ian. The fight was brutal and relentless, each man using every ounce of strength and skill to overpower the other. Bloodied and exhausted, Victor managed to land a fatal blow, ending Ian's life. Victor, now the last man standing, staggered to Laura's cell. She looked at him with a mix of fear and resignation, knowing what was to come. "You're the reason they all died," Victor spat, his voice dripping with venom. "You're the curse of this place." Laura pleaded for her life, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Victor, it's not my fault. I never wanted this." But Victor, consumed by rage and grief, was beyond reason. He grabbed her, his grip unyielding. "I'll end this now," he said coldly, before silencing her pleas forever. Chapter 5: The Grim Presentation. With Laura's lifeless body in his arms, Victor made his way to the observation room. His steps were heavy, his breath ragged, but his resolve was unshaken. He reached the scientists, who watched with impassive curiosity. Dr. Marcus looked up from his notes, a slight smile playing on his lips.
"Ah, Victor.
I see you've brought us a gift." Victor, his eyes hollow, placed Laura's severed head on the table. "Enjoy the view," he said bitterly, collapsing to the floor. His body, finally succumbing to the injuries and exhaustion, went limp. The scientists, unfazed, began to document the final stages of their experiment. The government officials, watching from a secure location, nodded in approval. The data collected was invaluable, the insights gained far outweighing the cost of human lives. Chapter 6. The cycle continues. The experiment was broadcasted to the public, who watched with morbid fascination. The government hailed the research as a breakthrough, awarding the scientists for their contribution to the understanding of human psychology. Ethics were a non-issue. Results were all that mattered. As the prison was cleared and prepped for the next round of experiments, Dr. Marcus and his team reviewed their findings. "We've made significant progress," Marcus noted. "Let's prepare for the next phase." In this dystopian world, prisoners were mere test subjects, their lives expendable in the pursuit of knowledge. The public, desensitized to the violence, eagerly awaited the next spectacle. The cycle of exploitation and dehumanization was far from over, as the line between science and sadism grew increasingly blurred. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, please share this podcast with your friends and rate it on your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget to visit my website at www.tonyc.info for more content, updates, and exclusive behind-the-scenes insights. This podcast is mainly supported by listeners like you. If you want to help keep the stories coming, consider supporting me on Patreon at www.patreon.com patreon.com/JTAC. Even just $1 a month makes a huge difference and helps me continue to create the content you love. Thank you again for listening. Your support means the world to me. Until next time, stay safe and keep exploring the unknown.